every team, regardless of where they're at, there are assumptions about what happens every day, and then there's the reality, and they're never the same. So when we map out that value stream with a team, it's not to just say, what happens and how long does it take. It's not the mechanics, it's the relationships.
Procognita, Get Agile podcast.
How do you get people to collaborate? Interview with Jim Benson. Hi and welcome to Get Agile podcast. We are at ICE conference venue and we're recording interviews now with Jim Benson. Well, a man of many traits, this is how you see it in English, I believe. And the thing we want to focus on is collaboration equation, your last book. Mm-hmm. But I'm gonna check if there's anything I should mention about you or about anything before we move to equations.
Well, so I guess the only other thing is that anything that we talk about today is probably covered in one of our classes at Modus Institute, which is our online school. But other than that, it's either the book or that.
Right, so we move there, and then we're gonna go back to advertisement about the school.
Okay.
We do this in the breaks. Anyway, collaboration equation. So you talked about this yesterday during your keynote. By the way, the keynote is also online, hopefully by now, so you can see it. So what is it all about?
So the collaboration equation is kind of everything that I've experienced over my set of careers. So I've been a punk rocker, I've been a civil engineer, I've been an urban planner, I've owned a software company, I've done a lot of weird things, and then in the process learned a lot about collaboration.
The punk rocker is the one that's disconnect with your current outfit for me right now. So
this is generally not how I dress as a punk rocker.
Okay. So next time we're gonna do the podcast interview with the punk rocker Jim Benson.
That's right. I don't even know if I can do the glare anymore.
All right, and a collaboration equation is...
We'll wait to see. If Trump wins, I can get the glare.
That was advertisement as well.
I will. Yeah, then I'll be angry enough, definitely, to get the glare.
So, collaboration equation. Mm-hmm. What is that?
So the collaboration equation itself is an equation. So it is individuals in teams create value. So kind of individuals plus teams create equal value, or it could be individuals raised to the power of teams create value, or individuals times teams. It doesn't particularly matter, but the notion is that all teams are made up of people, and all teams have to do something. And Agile is really good at looking at teams. Lean is really good at looking at value. Neither of them are really good at looking at people. And in order to have a culture or a system of work that actually works, we need to pay attention to the people.
All right. One of the things we just had in few previous conversations we had here is what companies call team is not much of the team. So I don't know if we should start from this direction because you mentioned that people as a building block for this one. But maybe we can start with what is team and what is not team, and then move to how people can create the team, or just putting few people into a room and calling them team doesn't make them the team. That's what I have in mind, right?
Right, or putting a lot of people in a room and calling them a team doesn't help either. So a team is a group of people who have a common goal, and they know how they as a group are going to achieve that goal. So not that they all have individual assignments, but that they know how they help each other. They know how they are constantly monitoring to make sure that you're moving in the right direction, that when change is necessary, which it is often, like maybe daily, that people know that it's happened, they know why, and that they remember that it's happened, and that they are what we might call self-aware. So they know that they're an individual, and what they lend to the team how the team protects them and how they protect the other people on the team, and how they as a team work with everybody else. So other teams, stakeholders, bosses, customers, whatever we want to call those people. And it all ends up being relationships. You know, who does what, when, what triggers those actions, and how do we make sure that people do the right thing at the right time?
I like the concept about the self-awareness of the individual and the team. However, maybe worth stressing out is like putting this collaboration to tools doesn't, address the collaboration part.
Right. So people will know me as one of the people that created Kanban, and definitely one of the people that created personal Kanban, and Lean Coffee, and all of these tools. So you might expect that I want people to have a Kanban. And what I will tell you is that Kanban is never enough. You can't manage your work with one visualization. A lot of teams are managing their work with no visualization. But if the team...
So they can. They can try.
They can try, yes, they can definitely try, and they can have the same experience that everybody else has had throughout history. Is that if you can't see your work, you can't understand it. Right.
Which is harder when you basically process knowledge, not the physical things.
Yes. So you have to create proxies. You have to create visualizations for that work. And even if you're doing physical things, like you have an assembly line and you're building things, assembly lines also have visual controls next to the assembly lines that say this is how many defects that we've had. This is where the defects tend to happen. This is our shipping schedule. This is how we've made our goals. And then people can see those things as they happen in real time. And then they change their behavior based on that input. And that is part of being a professional. So a professional is two things. One, wanting to do the right thing at the right time. And two, wanting to do the right thing at the right time better than you did it last time.
Which is, I would believe, a stronger definition that most people would have.
Yeah, most people being professional means I don't yell at people at work or show my emotions.
I don't screw up my work.
Yes. and no, if you're a professional, you can't just pay attention to yourself. So there's this story where while recording a live album or an improvised album, Herbie Hancock and Miles Davis and a bunch of other people are playing this song. And Miles is standing here and Herbie Hancock is playing the keyboards. And he plays for a little bit and he screws something up. So he's like, and there's like this completely wrong note. And he throws up his hands and he stops playing. And then Miles walks over with his trumpet and plays exactly what Herbie just played, including the mistake. And then he did some riffs on it, and then he turned it into the next part of the song. And so the way that Herbie Hancock tells that story is he's like, at that point, I learned that there were no true mistakes when you're improvising. There's only the stuff that happens, and then your reactions to the stuff that happens. And that, to me, is collaboration. Is that Herbie Hancock found himself in a position where he felt like he was doing the wrong thing. Miles had his back and turned that into a learning opportunity for everybody. I love that story.
That's cool. So what we get is if you're doing the same stuff over again, the same way. Mm-hmm. I remember there was this kind of saying you don't have 10 years of experience, you have 10 times 1 year of experience, this kind of stuff, right? Uh-huh. So this is the difference between I know my stuff and I'm professional. Right. I believe that would be the definition. I want to go back to this human part of this team. So mm-hmm. we mostly skip it on purpose, of course. So you're saying Lean is missing this, Agile is missing this. What is the thing that, in your perspective, is the critical one that is missing?
So there's a large body of study and knowledge and theory around how human beings interact and how we can help guide those interactions in possible ways or in positive ways. And so those might include, things like Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky's work in behavioral economics. So Thinking Fast and Slow is a great a resource for that. There's what was kind of been loosely termed positive psychology movement, which my recommendation for that would be Csikszentmihalyi's book Flow.
And to stop it, all those books will be under our recording.
Right.
After the recording.
As will all of Jim's books, which are really good.
Wow. and trying. Is it the half of the conversation we should stop for the others? Anyway, so coming back to the flow.
That's right. So, and then there's a wide body. So the way that I learned a lot about how to work and deal with other people was to read things like books by Kurt Vonnegut or by Haruki Murakami, or people who actually wrote about people finding themselves in weird positions or situations and then how they reacted to those situations. So a lot of things that we think of as fiction or frivolous are actually kind of the philosophy of the latter half of the 20th century. Right now, there's a couple of books by an author named Arkady Martin, which is like they're kind of sci-fi books, but all of her books deal with power distance in one way or another. And they're fascinating. Just, you read them and you're like, oh, I'm reading sci-fi. And then at one point you realize, oh, I just accidentally read 300 pages about people's relationships and I didn't even realize it. And what I love about that.
It kind of sounds like a Terry Pratchett. And you read this one sounds pretty familiar to your world, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's the human, what we miss in Agile and Lean is we miss human interaction. And we can't really get human interaction without watching humans interact.
One thing I liked yesterday when you mentioned during your keynote, when you mentioned that on the value stream mapping, you don't look at the activities, but you look between the activities. Mm-hmm. So this concept when you even in software, you do like a back and front and you have API, and the problem never happened here, but on the connection.
The translation layer.
The problem is always on the connection. So, so always, if you have two departments, the problem is always in between departments, not inside the department so much, right? So this is what you're saying, the connection. We look at the individuals, we look at the teams, but we don't look at the connection themselves. This is what you're saying?
Yeah, and that we, when in our daily work, whatever it is, we have certain assumptions of things that happen and the orders in which they happen. And by and large, no one has sat down and actually mapped that out together to make sure that all of those assumptions are the same. And it doesn't matter what industry it's been. I've worked in construction and healthcare and software development, and all. We have clients all over the world doing all sorts of things. Every team, regardless of where they're at, there are assumptions about what happens every day, and then there's the reality, and they're never the same. So when we map out that value stream with a team, it's not to just say, what happens and how long does it take. It's not the mechanics. It's the relationships. When I do this, it hurts you, and I had no idea. And that makes people like it's so hard to get people to change. Well, it's a lot easier if they suddenly realize they're being a jerk.
Not because they wanted to be.
They never wanted to be. It's just how the system was set up, and they're like, "Wow, I didn't realize that hurt you so bad."
It just remind me, Jerry Weinberg. No matter how it looks, everybody's trying to be helpful, right?
Yes.
This kind of stuff. And we end up with those people who we think are jerks in our organization, and just because they have some assumption that they are here to help you, but not much.
Yeah, well, or that that there isn't a system set up where they know how to help in a helpful way. And so in the talk I gave yesterday, which apparently people will be able to find online, I talk about acting with confidence. And that's what acting with confidence is all about. I know that when I do this, it really will help people.
And you gave some examples. I don't know if we can touch on those, but I would like to hear them from you, not from myself.
Okay. So there's a lot of them.
On the presentation, you can watch online from the ACE conference recordings.
But they, so the first thing that I'll just talk about was that the key story there was about a guy named Kevin. And Kevin was in a situation where he had a lot of responsibilities, but he didn't have they had set up a helpful system where every day he could go and get guidance from people who had more experience than him. But the way that the system was set up was that he came every day and said, this is what I did yesterday, and then they would comment on it, right? Which meant that every day he was basically being judged for what he did yesterday. So what we did was we turned that on its head. We set up some visualizations that showed everybody what he was doing in real time, and then he just worked. And then every couple of days, he and all of those people would meet in the room with that visualization. And then he got that feedback, but he got it in a way where they knew already what was happening, and they didn't have to critique what he was doing. They could just comment on, what would be helpful for him to do next. So that turned it into, from an adversarial conversation into a helpful conversation.
So, if I can dig into that a little more, how did you find out it's a problem for him? How did the other stakeholders learn it's a problem for him?
Well, so we did a value stream map and found out what all of the steps were in the procurement process at Turner Construction. This was at Turner Construction. And the procurement process had 36 different steps in it. This is a very long process with a lot of details in it. And those details could get lost easily. And so then we just shadowed him and others for a day, and we saw how they worked. They worked in a certain way. They got information in a certain way. Or they didn't get that information in a certain way. And then we basically watched for if you do or don't have this information, how does it change how you act? And then in so doing, we basically taught Kevin how to do that. So now he's basically the head of lean for the whole northeast region of Turner because it was kind of an inadvertent train the trainer moment. But when people have the information to act, and it's good, they will usually act. So just kind of like to riff off of what Jerry was saying, is that no matter how people are acting, they're generally trying to be helpful. If people have the information on how to be truly helpful, then they will act in a way that is truly helpful.
But I'm missing this part. When did you learn that those daily meetings are painful? Because I understand that you observe the process, you notice that where is something missing, but how did you learn those parts are missing? Because unless he call you and say, okay, I have a painful meeting daily, and how can you fix those?
please come to my pain.
I've seen in conversation, okay, can you fix my manager? I've seen those already. If that's not the case, and then how did you notice these are the pain for him?
So for him or for the other procurement people, when we were mapping out the value stream, the first thing that I watched was how the procurement agents themselves interacted while they were defining the work that they do. And what happened was they would say, well, we do this, and then before that we do this, and before that we do this, and then before that we do this thing. And then they would get there and everybody would have a different idea of what happened at that point. Immediately that tells me that there's pain there. It means that everyone has come up with their own solution to what should happen at that step. So you go through those exercises and you watch basically where either the number of stickies shows up or where they have a protracted construction or conversation. Or they have, or you watch their body language, or even just we've had many value stream mapping exercises where people just burst into tears. They're like, this is so awful right here.
It's kind of interesting.
Yes. And so it ends up, especially for software people, this ends up being the first time that people have actively said, this is what happens to me every day, like even to themselves. And what we do every day is us. It's like part of our self-concept. It's really personal. And so when we see it and we see how much it hurts, it's really painful for us. So people will right away just show. Then after you're done with all of that, you actually give them red stickies and say, put this on the parts that are actually painful. Or we give them blue stickies that say, this is stupid. And they put those so we actually let them say things like, this thing that we do regularly is stupid. And so there'll be times where they're putting up the stickies on something and it's just like the things that they do, and there's no indication that there's a problem. But they'll totally put the this is stupid sticky right
So what you're saying, you don't look at just a time, whatever to market, but like a emotional investment to market.
100%. 100%. The emotional taxes that you're paying to bring that to market.
I like that definition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what we find also is that where you find the parts where there's the most emotion, that's actually where the bottlenecks already are. And if you solve for the emotion, they're going to give you a really awesome creative solution. If you solve for the cost of delay, they're going to give you a mechanical, boring solution that probably is just as annoying as what they're solving. But if they think that they're solving like, oh my God, this is going to hurt less, then you usually get a pretty amazing, hypothesis of how to solve that particular problem.
I'm buying this one. Okay.
Yeah.
I like
it is, whenever we do these things, it's just like, Tony and I are both just like, it's like every time we're like, I can't believe this thing works so well. So the value stream mapping stuff, by and large, if you kind of take like a combination of John Shook and Jim Womack, that's kind of where the original thinking came from. And then we kind of added on that humane layer on top of it.
Okay, so we get those pain points, we get this. There's one more thing I may be overheard in this conversation, but what I heard is like you're looking also for where a lot of conversation is happening. This is my assumption, or this is what you have heard. Is like this could be a pain point, potential pain point. You have a lot of conversation in one place, and probably there is not easy solution for that.
People aren't going to talk for a long time about what's going right.
That's boring. Everybody knows this one.
Yeah, so they're not going to get up there and go, yeah, this goes right. Oh, that goes right every day. Yeah, it's amazing how right that goes. Let's
have a conversation about this, how awesome we are here.
And so the thing is like, this is what bugs me about stand-up meetings. Stand-up meetings are mostly everybody getting up and just talking about what's going right. They're stupid.
I was working on my items. I will be working on my items, right?
Yeah. I was like, who cares?
I don't know. That was in the guide. We need to talk about this one.
So yeah, what did I do yesterday? What am I doing today? Do I have any blockers? No one wants to talk about blockers, and they'll just talk about what's going right, and then you're done. But if it's on the board, if it's on a visual board, you can see it. You don't have to talk about what's going right. Everybody doesn't have to report in. But if something's weird, you can talk about the weird. And then all of a sudden you've done something useful in your board. Now you can, if everybody's working on different stuff, they can kind of just really quickly say what's going on. But one of the boards that I showed in the talk was also at Turner, but it was in their estimation group. And they had different swim lanes for each project that was being estimated. There's generally one or two estimators working on each project, so it always felt like solo work, and then they would never learn from each other. But every estimation project had something annoying happening in it. And so what they called those annoying things constraints. And so basically what happens is they just kind of checked off where their stuff was in the process, which was state information, which is boring. Kanban guy says state information is boring. So
we're gonna use this one for shorts, so to get a better access to people.
So, but what isn't boring is the constraints, because those are the weird things. And so they would write down the constraints that they had on, actually in words, and then you would see where 2 or 3 projects had the same kinds of constraints.
What is constraint in this case?
In this case, it might be I don't have access to this type of information, or let's say. So this particular thing was at the beginning of the first Trump administration, where he went crazy and put tariffs on everybody on Earth, right? So all of a sudden, like if you were ordering travertine from Italy, it suddenly cost twice as much. And so that would be a constraint. It'd be like all of a sudden we had originally budgeted that this was going to be $60,000 for travertine, and now it's going to be $120,000 because of this unnecessary new event. And then the group could get together and they could talk about different ways to mitigate those costs. Or it could be, well, there's a million ways, but that's a pretty good example.
Which also put me into thinking about to make people work together, they need to have something to work together. Like in most cases, if I can do my job myself, you can do your job yourself, then why the hell we should talk to each other, basically, right?
Then why are you on a team?
Yeah, and this is what I'm saying. I mean, we call team people who are not on the team, right? So this is what I'm saying. This is something we mentioned at the very beginning. We name teams people who are not teams and just call them team. We have a Java team, but in most cases they don't care about, because you're working on your feature, I'm working on my feature. Then who cares anyway?
That's right. That's right. Because if there's one thing that software doesn't do is integrate. Those features will always be living on their own.
We do it as late as we can.
That's right. That's right. So the longer you put off talking to your colleagues, the more likely it is that you're going to have integration problems and that your testing is going to be a big pain in the ass.
But maybe this is about delaying the pain in the ass.
That's right.
It's better to say I'm gonna start diet tomorrow or every morning, right?
That's right. It's just a little gout, It'll go. Surely, if I ignore this gout
for next 2 years.
Yeah, that's when
okay. Let us finish with this story. How do you make people to collaborate, if you can?
So what I find is that if you tell people that they're going to collaborate, they're going to say no.
This is this is my observation as well. I mean, and I know that the people who collaborate. So we know this happened. I know this happened. I know this happened. I don't know, when the magic happened between this and this.
Right. So this is the fun part, is that. When you get people together and you say, I want you to use this Kanban and collaborate, they're going to tell you, no, bite me, go pound sand. And so then you're like, well, that didn't work. I guess they don't want to collaborate. It's like, no, they did want to collaborate, but there was no clarity in what you just asked them to do. So we get together and we do this thing called a right environment exercise. And the reason for doing this is to have the team build their own reasons to collaborate. So we get together initially and we do that value stream mapping exercise, and from that they learn how their work currently flows, how they'd like it to flow, how there are differences, and how they as individuals cause problems for everybody else. So immediately they're able to say, what I do actually does impact other people. Even if I don't think it does impact other people, and in unexpected ways. I know now that when I learn something and I don't tell my teammates about it, that learning was worthless. It was absolutely worthless. And even if I learn it, I'm going to forget it because I didn't teach it to somebody else. So literally everybody's like, well, if I learn it myself, at least I get the value there. It's like, no, because you forget it. So then they see that. Then we move into the second stage, and the second stage is, as a group of people, what is it that you need to do a professional job and grow as a professional? And they're like, I need this training, we need access to these tools, we need to make sure that we have regular retrospectives, we need to plan together. And weirdly enough, the moment that you ask people, what do you need in order to be a team of professionals, they will start to invent ways to collaborate.
Like a planning, like a retro. That's great. Like getting feedback from customers.
Yeah, and suddenly it's because now they're like, well, what would you do? And they're like, well, I guess I do that thing that I always say I don't want to do. And so it's like, okay, so now that you've said that you want to do that, your group runs on information. What information do you need to know? Where is it currently? Can you find it? And if not, how do we put it someplace where you can find it and where you know where it is? So if you have Confluence, who updates it? How does it work? Blah, 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 blah. You know, whatever your information repository is. If you make a decision, did you make it in Slack and it disappeared? Or did you make it and then you put it somewhere so that you know that you actually made the decision? You know, when you're interrupted, what interrupts you? And when we ask people that, every single time, about 80% of them is other people on their team asking them, where is the? Where's this decision? Where's this resource? Where's this information? When did we decide we were going to do this? Blah, 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 blah. And then another probably 10% of it is them fighting over decisions that they already made. It meant this. No, it meant this. No, it meant this. So we build an information architecture for the team that makes sure that everybody knows where information is and that they share it in a caring and responsible way. And then those things create a little plan, and that little plan is basically how do you improve, how do you collaborate, blah, 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 because you want to. And then now we've built a social system, a cultural system that they own and that they can maintain.
That resonates with my idea that you cannot force people to work in a team.
No.
No matter how much you try.
Well, so you can for very small points and for very small, so prison gangs get work done. You know, the pyramids were built. You know, people will die. People will not enjoy the work, and you will be able to see the impacts of that. But coercion tends to work for very short periods of time. Collaboration works for longer periods of time.
All right. And some of this information can be found in your book. Some of this information can be found on your website. Some of this information can be found in trainings. This is the moment when we mention them once again.
Now is the moment in which we sell.
That is the moment we sell.
So the 4 books are the Collaboration Equation, which is the most recent one, which talks about all the things that we just talked about. The middle 2 books are Why Limit WIP and Why Plans Fail, which are basically about that kind of human side of working in teams. So how do we make sure that we have the right amount of work, and how do we kind of thwart some of those cognitive biases that might stop us from collaborating? And then Personal Kanban, of course, is the Personal Kanban book that is about personal Kanban. The website is modusinstitute.com. There's currently about a dozen courses on there by several different people. The most popular ones right now are the Personal Kanban class, obviously. There's a class called Toxic Waste, which is about toxicity in the office. Dave Pryor is about to come out with a class on the art of war and project management, which is a cool class, and everybody should be excited about it. And we have a bunch of classes coming up about small classes about specific lean or agile tools. So if you're like an Agile coach and you would like some tools that aren't in the average Agile coach toolbox, like A3 thinking or the X matrix or things like that come from lean, those will be coming up soon, and they're all taught kind of in a, I guess, what you might say, Agile context.
And all the links are under the recording.
Yep.
Thank you very much for the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then please do subscribe, because more interviews are coming soon.
To learn more, visit procognita.com/getagile.